3 spine-chilling true wilderness encounters, terrifying secrets exposed in the haunted wilds. Laura gripped the steering wheel tightly, the gravel crunching under the old minivan tires as she drove deeper into the dense woods. The trees loomed like dark giants, their boughs intertwining like skeletal fingers reaching out to snatch them away. Anxiety bubbled in her chest. This was supposed to be a joyful escape for her kids, 10-year-old Jacob and 7-year-old Emily, a chance to bond away from their troubles in Pine Hollow. But even the fading sunlight sent a chill skittering through her as long shadows danced across the dirt road, twisting like phantoms in the fading light. When they finally stepped out, excitement flared in Emily's eyes, while Jacob hesitated. Laura tried to shake off her own nervousness as she unloaded the gear, the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves filling her lungs. Just as they settled in, laughter bounced off the trees. But it was not long before they stumbled upon a time-worn journal half hidden beneath a gnarled tree root. Its cover, cracked and fading, whispered promises of horror, detailing the tales of past campers who vanished, leaving only echoes of their screams. The entry sent chills racing down Laura's spine as she flipped through the pages, but she clung to rationality. These were just old wives' tales, she told herself, as she tucked the journal back into her bag, but as night crept in, the forest transformed. The woods seemed to breathe around them. The usual chirps of crickets faded, replaced by unsettling growls that curled up from the underbrush. Laura's heart thundered in her chest, she felt eyes lurking from the shadows, dissecting their every move. A knot tightened in her stomach. She thought about the stories shared back in town, about those who claimed the woods were haunted, whispers of the law's complicity in covering up dark events. "Mom!" Jacob's voice pierced the anxious atmosphere as he jerked awake, his wide eyes shimmering with fear. Panic flashed through her. "Did you hear that? There's something out there." Laura forced a smile, brushing her trembling hands against his cheeks. "It's just the wind, buddy," she said, quaking inside. But a sharp crack, like snapping bone, shattered her facade as the primal instinct to protect her children ignited within her. The shapes flitting at the edge of the firelight danced just out of focus. Silhouettes too swift to be real. She brushed it off, convincing herself it was merely her imagination. But every heartbeat echoed louder, fear gripping her like a vice. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." They huddled together, barricaded in their tent, heartbeats sinking in terror as warped breathing echoed outside. Each sound formed a terrifying symphony. The clock ticked steadily toward midnight, creating a rhythmic countdown to dread. Then came a familiar voice. "Laura. It's Mr. Hargrave. You okay?" His figure loomed at the edge, too close for comfort, that grin too wide, the brightness in his eyes stark against the dark woods, sending fresh waves of unease coursing through her veins. The forest felt alive, thrumming with hidden danger, and for a second, the warmth of familiarity flashed. Was it safety, or was it something more sinister? Just as dawn light began to paint the sky, a blood-curdling scream sailed through the trees. Laura wrapped her arms around her children, heart racing, realizing that whatever hunted them was closer than ever, and escape might not be possible at all. The sun's first light cast eerie shadows, but the woods buzzed with sinister energy. Laura's gut twisted as she peered out of the tent, half expecting the horrors of the night before to materialize once again. The forest felt different in daylight, yet the memories were sharp, clinging to her like a damp fog. "Mom, what was that?" Jacob's shaky voice broke through her thoughts. He held on to Emily as if she were his lifeline. "I don't know, sweetie," she whispered, trying to summon comfort where none existed. "Let's make breakfast." Kneeling over the small cook stove, every hiss of the flame seemed amplified, slicing through the oppressive morning air. She flipped pancakes, the smell mixing with the scent of pine, an unsettling combination. Behind her, Emily stared at the dark shadows that clung to the trees, her little brows knitted in worry. Laura turned, forcing a smile. "Look! Pancakes!" She lifted the steaming stack, but Jacob's eyes remained fixed on the forest. The excitement he had dwindled overnight, replaced by a shadow of fear. "Can we go home now?" he murmured, his voice small. "Just a little fun, okay? One more day." It felt like a lie. As the kids ate, Laura's thoughts roamed back to the journal, now buried deep within the bag. What if there was truth to those pages? The scream from the night flared in her mind like an open wound. Her head began to pound with the weight of dread. The peaceful morning quickly turned oppressive, the rustling leaves bordering on ominous. As if on cue, the familiar growls from last night echoed once more. They weren't just figments of her imagination, but real threats lurking just beyond sight. Panic clawed at her throat. "Stay close to me," Laura commanded, leading her children toward the opening of their small camp. "Let us check the area." Every step felt tentative, dread curling at her heels. They ventured into the trees, shadows closing in around them. The morning light barely pierced the thick canopy, and with it came an unsettling silence that sank beneath their skin. Laura realized not a single bird sang, not even the wind dared to rustle the branches. "Mom." Emily tugged on her shirt, her voice shaky. "Just a little further," Laura coaxed, swallowing bile. She glanced back at the tent, the only barrier between safety and whatever hunted them. Turning a corner of trees, they stumbled upon a clearing. What lay there sent chills racing down Laura's spine. It was a crude circle of stones, charred remnants of firewood scattered about. Symbols carved into the trees surrounding the clearing seemed to pulse with menace. Ancient warnings echoed in her thoughts. "Look!" Jacob pointed, his face going pale. At the circle's center lay a tattered shirt, its color darkened by something unrecognizable. Their laughter from last night felt like a distant memory now. Everything had shifted. Suddenly, a loud crash shattered the stillness. Startled birds exploded into the sky. They turned as one, adrenaline kicking in, hearts pounding to a frenzied rhythm. Scuffling noises thrummed from deeper in the woods. "Run!" Laura shouted, grabbing the hands of her children. They sprinted back through the trees, the branches clawing at their skin like the very nightmares they hoped to escape. The sounds chased them, crunching leaves, snapping twigs, a relentless pursuit. Jacob stumbled, nearly falling, but Laura pulled him back up. They reached the tent, breathless, terror etched across their faces as they invaded the space once more. "Lock it!" Emily squealed, fear spilling from her wide eyes. Laura fumbled with the zipper, desperation driving her movements. The noise outside grew louder, stronger, like a beast raring to break through. A gasp escaped her as she peered through the fabric. Tall and cloaked, a figure stood just outside the tent, features hidden beneath a dark hood, waiting. In that paralyzing moment, Laura knew one thing for certain: the worst was only just beginning. The figure loomed, its dark silhouette eclipsing the meager light filtering through the tent fabric. Goosebumps prickled Laura's skin, a primal fear tightening around her chest. For a heartbeat, time hung suspended, filled only with the heavy, pulsing thrum of her heart. "Mom!" Jacob's voice quaked beside her, trembling with terror. "What is happening?" She whispered, holding a hand to her lips, but the sound of something scraping against the side of the tent made it impossible to stay silent. Panic ignited within her. "Get back!" she hissed, pulling both children against her as far from the entrance as they could go. She felt Emily's small body shaking against her. The scraping came again, this time followed by a low growl that reverberated through the fabric like a thunderous heartbeat, almost melodic in its dreadful promise. The hairs on the back of Laura's neck stood upright, every instinct urging her to flee. But where would they go? Outside, the forest was a labyrinth of uncertainties. Inside the tent was a fragile barrier, and now it felt impossibly frail. Then there was silence. A suffocating stillness fell over them, and the air grew heavy, even the faint rustle of leaves outside had ceased. Laura wanted to scream, to break the silence with a sound, any sound, but the terror rooting her to the ground held her captive. "Mom, I want to go home," Jacob whispered again, his small hands gripping her tighter. "We will, Jacob. I promise. Just hold on." Her voice was shaky with a mix of determination and fear. They listened, breaths synchronized in trembling anticipation. The figure shifted again, and for a moment, Laura thought she could see a sliver of movement in the shadows. The darkness seemed almost alive as it expanded and contracted, weaving through the trees like a serpent searching for its prey. "Let us do something," Emily suggested, her voice barely audible, the fear daring to creep in. "What if we make noise? Maybe it'll go away." Laura's mind raced. What if it did? But then again, what if it drew even more attention? She could feel every heartbeat echoing in her ears, a countdown to something inevitable. "Okay," she finally whispered, her heart steeling itself for whatever might come. "On 3, we all shout as loud as we can. 1, 2, 3. They yelled, 3 voices, a cacophony of fear bursting the silence like a balloon. But instead of retreating, the figure pressed closer, a low chuckle escaping its lips, a sound so wrong, it sent chills down her spine. Suddenly, the ground gave way beneath the figure's feet, the soft earth beneath it cracked like porcelain as something thick and dark oozed from the forest floor, wrapping around its legs. The low growl morphed into a bone-chilling screech as it fell backward, dragging the thing down with it. But before Laura could process the horror, another noise caught her attention. From the rear of the tent, a rustling echoed, but the shadows opposite the entrance twisted ominously. Another shape smaller, not cloaked, glided into view. A child's scream pierced the air from behind, familiar and gut-wrenching. "Emily!" Laura's heart plummeted as she turned, a sick dread filling her throat. The outline of Emily's figure was illuminated by a faint, ghastly glow. "Stay close." Just then, the unknown entity at the entrance lurched upright, and with it came a sickening laugh that echoed with 1,000 voices, as if mocking her despair. "Mom, help me." Emily's voice trembled again, the memory of terror flashing through Laura as she went from frantic to feral. She had to act. Instinct took over, feet moving, body throwing herself toward the terrifying shadows. But she was racing against time, and whatever waited outside was only the beginning. What awaited them outside the tent, a world writhing with darkness, was surging with even more horrors to claim them. Would they escape the grips of the woods? Or would they succumb to the chilling embrace of the unknown? Laura charged through the tent entrance, a primal scream clawing at her throat as the shadows danced around her. The night air hit her like a frigid wave, instantly chilling her bones. Emily's cries pierced the darkness, each one fraying Laura's nerves further. She spun around, her heart racing, battling the urge to turn back and shield her children. "Emily!" she shouted, though the words felt inadequate amidst the chaos swirling around them. The trees seemed to warp, twisting their branches into grotesque shapes, as the forest itself watched with hungry eyes. The figure at the tent entrance, now partially concealed by a consuming mist, peered through the darkness with gleaming eyes. They looked wrong, bright yet devoid of warmth, like unfeeling stars snuffed out of existence. Its laugh echoed again, a chilling sound like broken glass sliding deep into the night. "Get to the trees!" Laura yelled, panic fueling her determination. Her instincts screamed at her to find safety, to shield her children from whatever nightmare had come alive. She grabbed Jacob's hand, pulling him along as she raced toward the meager cover of the forest. "Mom, where's Emily?" Jacob cried, tugging at her arm, confusion and fear painting his features. She glanced back, instantly regretting it. The shadow was closer now, slinking through the fog as wisps of darkness rose from the ground like smoke, curling around its form. "Stay close!" she shouted, forcing her legs to move faster even as dread threatened to swallow her whole. The forest swallowed them whole, the trees looming above like towering sentinels. Each gust of wind sent branches rattling, a chorus of whispers that seemed to echo her fears. They stumbled through the underbrush, tripping over roots and unseen obstacles, all while searching for their companion. Emily. She called again, her voice raw and hoarse. Despair coiled around her heart. What if they lost her? Mommy. Emily's voice came from deeper in the woods, a sorrowful cry that stretched across the darkened landscape. It was both a beacon and a curse. Stay together. Laura screamed, pulling Jacob closer as they pushed into the abyss of trees and shadows. There was something unsettling about the air, as if it were thickening the very essence of the forest closing in around them. Laura's breaths quickened, becoming ragged and desperate. Above, the moon flickered in and out behind clouds as if even it feared to look upon the horrors below. Suddenly, a howl split the air, primal and bone-chilling. It was closer now, too close. Mom, we can't leave Emily. Jacob pleaded, his grip on her hand tightening. Just a little farther. She urged, fighting against the rising panic in her throat. It would only take a moment to reach her daughter. She could feel the weight of the dark pressing down, and whatever lurked behind them was gaining ground, but as they pressed on, another scream tore through the night, this one sounding not just terrified, but broken. Laura froze. The sound carried a weight of despair that resonated like a haunting melody, stalling her breath and stealing her resolve. Come on. Jacob yanked her forward, but fear anchored her in place. We need to find her. She needs us. With a burst of determination, she reached forward. Emily. Hold on. She stumbled deeper into the forest, urging Jacob along, yet her heart sank as the echoes of his cries faded into an unsettling silence. And then she saw it, a flicker of light deeper within the trees, pulsing like a heartbeat. Emily. Laura dashed toward it, but the forest shifted, the ground beneath them trembling. She caught a glimpse of a shape hidden within the light, impossibly familiar yet twisted. Mom. The voice called again, but it was too late to turn back. The forest erupted in chaos, ominous shadows converging, dark figures emerging from the gloom. Run! Laura yelled, abruptly realizing there was no choice left. They sprinted forward, but the light drew closer, beckoning them as shadows swirled. Whatever it was, it didn't just want Emily. It wanted all of them. They were on the brink of the unknown. Teetering towards something far worse than either could comprehend. Would the light offer salvation or damnation? The tangled woods closed in around them, and every heartbeat thundered, echoing the frantic race between life and the encroaching dark. What awaited them in the flickering light? Only time would tell. Laura pushed through the underbrush, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. Shadows danced around them, mocking her frantic movements. Emily. She screamed again, desperation slicing through the air. Each breath felt like ice against her lungs, heavy with dread. Jacob stumbled beside her, his small frame shaking. Mom, what if it gets us? Not if we keep moving. She shouted back, her voice a mix of reassurance and terror. They entered a small clearing, and for a moment, the oppressive atmosphere lightened. Moonlight spilled in, illuminating a patch of ground that looked untouched, innocent. But that peace was deceptive. From the darkness on the outskirts, the whispers returned, darker and more urgent. Laura felt an instinctual chill crawl up her spine. Suddenly, a figure appeared at the edge of the light, a silhouette cloaked in shadows, the familiar shape of her daughter emerging, just beyond reach. Mom! Help! Emily's voice called out, but it wasn't the sweet sound Lauren recognized. It was strained, distorted, like an echo trapped in a dark cave. Stay back! Laura cried out, pulling Jacob with her. The two watched as the figure morphed, limbs stretching unnaturally, shadows undulating like tendrils threatening to snatch her child away. Emily! Jacob shouted, his voice cracking. Don't go near it. Laura felt as if her heart might explode. We have to, but she barely managed to form the words. Fear clouded her thoughts, twisting her resolve. Emily, please. She begged, Taking a single step forward, within the flickering light, Emily stumbled, her face twisted in confusion, terror mingling with something darker, something unnameable. Laura could barely breathe as she took in the sight. Each passing moment felt stretched to eternity, time taunting her as shadows clawed at the edges of her mind. The dark figure stirred, and then, as if sensing her hesitation, it lunged forward. A wail erupted from the darkness, inhuman and chilling. Laura's instincts screamed at her to flee, to protect Jacob at all costs. She turned, eyes wild. "We can't stay here. We have to go, now." But Jacob, torn between fear and love, whispered, "What if it's really Emily?" "No." Laura's voice roared. "That's not our girl." With every ounce of strength she had, she grabbed Jacob's hand and pulled him into the woods, deeper into the embrace of the trees. They ran blindly, branches snagging at their clothes as if the forest itself was reluctant to let them go. The howl followed them, a growing chorus of anguish as they dashed round twisted trunks, racing toward the unknown. They sprinted through an oblivion that felt alive, the trees whispering secrets that set her teeth on edge. Each breath Laura took was heavier than the last, laced with the smell of decay and desperation. She dared not look back, terrified of what she might see, and then, abruptly, they stumbled into another clearing. This one was wide, the ground smoothed like a vast stage where dark rituals might take place. In the center, a twisted figure stood, neither human nor beast. A grotesque caricature of what they had once known. It turned slowly, the shadows pooling around it like ink. The glowing eyes of the creature caught Laura's gaze. And in that moment, she saw her daughter again, but this wasn't the Emily they had lost. This was something deeper, something yearning, a horror that consumed both light and hope. "Mommy," it was a whisper filled with something other than love. Something ancient. "Run." She forcibly pulled Jacob as the darkness began to throb, twisting the very fabric of reality, pulling them closer to the creature's malice, but as they turned to escape, a path appeared neither familiar nor friendly, leading away from the creature, deeper into the dread-strewn forest. Laura hesitated. The path felt wrong, magnetic, but it was their only chance. "Mom, we can't." Laura's heart raced as she whispered fiercely, "We have to trust it, whatever it is, we don't have a choice." With each uncertain step they stepped into the darkness, the laughter of the shadows echoed behind them, a promise and a threat all at once. What lay ahead was shrouded in a suffocating fog. Laura squeezed her son's hand tighter, both terrified and resolved. Was this path a way to freedom, or was it a trap, a descent into an even deeper nightmare? Only the silence of the unknown would reveal the truth. The air grew thicker, a suffocating shroud clinging to Laura and Jacob as they pushed deeper down the unseen path. An unsettling stillness wrapped around them, broken only by the soft crunch of twigs underfoot. Laura's heart hammered, a constant reminder of their fragility in this forsaken landscape. "Mom," Jacob's voice trembled, a featherweight whisper beneath the oppressive silence. "What if we never find Emily?" "Stop saying that," Laura snapped, her voice sharper than she intended. "We'll find her. I promise." But inside, uncertainty gnawed at her, each word feeling like a frail assurance in the face of dark possibilities. They walked on, every step stolen by the shadows, which seemed to pulse with a life of their own. The fog hugged the ground, creeping closer, wrapping around their ankles as if trying to pull them down. With each breath, Laura felt the icy tendrils of despair squeeze tighter around her chest. A flicker of movement caught her eye. She turned sharply, grabbing Jacob's hand. Was it just shadows? Or was something lurking close by, watching them? "Did you see that?" She breathed, urging herself to stay calm despite the tremor in her voice. Jacob nodded slowly, eyes wide with terror. I don't want to be here, Mom." "Me neither," she admitted, breath hitching in her throat as they pressed onward. Every instinct screamed to turn back, to flee from the dark that stalked them, but she couldn't scare Jacob further. So they moved forward, deeper into the darkness, desperate for safety they hadn't found yet. Suddenly, a sound sliced through the silence, a rustling, brushing against the trees. It was low, like whispers folding in on themselves. Laura stopped, straining to listen. The whispers grew louder, melding into a haunting chant that echoed in the folds of her mind. "Oh no, not again," she muttered, the words barely escaping her lips. "Mom, please," Jacob whimpered, his small frame shaking beside her. The chanting escalated, twisting the air into something palpable. It entangled them, smothering her thoughts, drowning out everything but the rhythmic murmurings that felt almost like a lure. Without thinking, Laura pulled Jacob close, her mind racing for an escape. Then she saw it, a flicker of light through the trees, glistening like hope in a land of despair. "There." She pointed, urging Jacob forward. "We have to get to the light." Bounding forward, they stumbled from the oppressive weight of the shadows into another clearing. But this wasn't a place of sanctuary. It felt wrong, like stepping into an illusion ready to swallow them whole. In the center stood a large stone, black and jagged, stark against the shimmering glow. Strange symbols were carved into its surface, pulsating with an eerie luminescence. "Mom, what is that?" Jacob whispered, eyes locked on the ominous stone. "I don't know," Laura breathed. Anxiety clawed at her throat. It looked like some ancient altar, a vessel for dark rituals. And then she heard it, the voice, deep and resonant, creeping from the shadows back toward them. "Stay with us," it wrapped around them, tempting, malevolent. "Run!" she shouted, adrenaline slicing through her fear. They spun, hearts racing, feet pounding against the earth. The forest closed in like a press, branches clawing at their clothes, without concern for the pain. Behind them, the chanting rose again, now a cacophony of madness, echoing with a promise of despair. Each step brought them closer to the edge of something they could not name. As they leaped over roots and rock, a thought struck Laura: what if the forest was trying to keep them there, luring them into its depths? Breathless, they burst into another thicket, the whispers now a symphony of dread. But out of the chaos, a path diverged, the faintest glimpse of light beckoning them. "This way!" Laura shouted, desperation propelling her forward. But as they fled, the shadows writhed, whispering alternatives, pulling them away from the light with dark promises. "Mom, what if we go the wrong way?" Jacob's voice cracked, skin chilled to the bone. Laura turned to him, her heart heavy with the weight of uncertainty. "We can't stop, Jacob. We can't." But the confidence in her voice was faltering. They headed toward the light, but behind them, a laughter surged, a dark, chilling peal that shook Laura to her core. It was the laughter of the forest, as if mocking her frantic escape, and she could feel it, the unseen presence racing at their heels. Would they reach the light before the darkness claimed them? The flicker of hope felt far away, as if it could extinguish at any moment. The laughter echoed louder, reverberating against her mind, reminding her of the truth she feared to face. What if this was all a trap, a final deception? As they raced on, the thought gnawed at her with a chilling intensity. There was no going back now, only the relentless chase into what might be their last moments. What shadowy fate awaited them as they drew closer to the light? The light flickered like a dying star, drawing Laura and Jacob closer as if it were a beacon in a storm. Each step felt like a desperate act, a prayer tossed into the abyss. The shadows behind them murmured louder, urging them to turn back, to abandon hope. But no. Laura clutched Jacob's hand tighter, his small fingers trembling like leaves in the wind. They pushed on, the light promising safety, even as the laughter of the forest clawed at their backs. "Faster!" she urged, a crack of fear threading through her voice. The air was electric, charged with a fear that crawled under her skin. Just as hope began to swell within her, she stumbled over a knotted root, nearly losing her grip on Jacob. He fell to his knees, wide eyes full of panic. "Mom! Get up! We have to." But the words stuck in her throat as a chill slammed into her, slithering around her spine. The voice returned, darker this time, echoing from the very forest itself. "Stay, leave, choose." Terror gripped her heart, tightening its hold. "Just a little farther, Jacob. Please." She heaved him up, and together they surged forward, but something thick and oily lashed against Laura's ankle, pulling her back. She stumbled, a scream snagging at the edge of her lips. The laughter twisted into harsh, mocking tones, a sinister chorus that danced in her ears. "Mom, it won't let us go," Jacob cried, his voice cracking like glass. "Don't look back. Just keep running." She yanked free from the unseen grasp and dragged Jacob onward. The light flickered again, pulsating like a heartbeat, but it felt impossibly distant. "We'll find Emily. We have to." Laura gasped, desperation fueling her. With each step, dread churned in her stomach. Who was Emily? The weight of the shadows pressed heavier, and the forest tightened its grip like vice around them. Then a scream pierced the suffocating air. A woman's voice, shrill and filled with agony. Laura stopped, heart racing, the fear that had been swelling in her now burst forth like a dam, waves of paralyzing dread washed over her. "Jacob!" She turned, but something in his eyes stopped her. He was staring into the shadows, face frozen, utterly transfixed. "Mom, she's right there. What?" Panic surged in her chest. "Who?" "It's Emily." Jacob pointed into the dark that flickered beyond the trees. But what appeared to be a girl stood there, blurred just at the edges, the light shimmering over her figure. She looked like a ghost trapped between worlds. Laura stepped forward, compelled, fear juxtaposed with hope. "Emily. Is that you? Help me." The girl's mouth moved, but no sound came out. And yet, it echoed in Laura's mind, an echo of desperation that resonated deeply. Then the shadows wrapped tighter around them, dark tendrils reaching out like sinister hands. "No!" Laura shouted instinctively, hurling herself towards Jacob. But the shadows responded, coiling and twisting, laughing as they lunged at the flicker that was their only hope. "Mom, don't!" Jacob pulled back, panic-laced words spilling from his lips. "It's a trick." The ghostly figure wavered, its form flickering ominously. Suddenly, it seemed to dissolve into the thick fog, leaving nothing but a whisper, a promise of betrayal lingering in the air. "Run!" The command blurted from Laura's mouth as they turned and bolted toward the light. But the screams from behind them intensified, a chorus of suffering souls that clawed at their resolve. "Mom! It's coming!" Jacob yelled, his voice raw with terror. Just before they burst into a clearing, Laura glanced back. Shadows swelled, rushes of dark fury swirling toward them, eyes glowing beneath the canopy. That twisted laughter echoed wild, filling her with dread as fear froze her veins. Would they make it to the light? As they lunged forward, the ground began to tremble beneath their feet. An ominous rumble grew, as if the very earth was alive with a hungry pulse. "Jacob!" She pressed on, the glow brighter now, but the shadows surged, and from beneath the weight of the darkness poured forth a multitude of faces screaming, weeping. They whirled around, pulling Laura and Jacob toward the rising tide of despair. "Run!" But the word felt hollow in her throat. As they reached what may have been safety, the shadows finally broke free, reaching for her, for Jacob, for everything they held dear. A dark, swirling mass that threatened to consume them whole. And as they stepped into the light, a bright flash enveloped them, plunging into a blinding void. What lay on the other side? Laura had no idea. Would they be free, or would they step into a new nightmare? As the tempest cooled around them, an unsettling stillness took hold. Then, a familiar voice echoed from somewhere within the depths of the darkness they left behind. "You can't escape us." What have we done? Laura thought, dread coiling tighter around her heart. They weren't safe yet, not by a long shot. The light faded gradually, dissolving into an eerie twilight that wrapped around them like a cold blanket. Laura squinted, trying to make out her surroundings. The forest they had just narrowly escaped now lay behind them, a looming specter, darker and more sinister than they remembered. But the blinding light that had pulled them in was gone, replaced by shadows that crawled along the ground. Where are we?" Jacob whispered, his voice trembling as they turned, searching for signs of life. Laura felt her heart race, and fear twisted her stomach. The woods felt alive, pulsing with an energy that made the hair on her arms stand on end. She couldn't shake the feeling that something watched them from the depths of the darkness. "Maybe it's safer here," she suggested, trying to assuage the growing dread in her chest. But even as she spoke the words, she knew it was a lie. The shadows shifted, twisting unnaturally in the corner of her vision, as if trying to seep into their very being. With cautious steps, they moved further into what appeared to be a clearing. Dead trees loomed overhead, their gnarled branches sounding a hollow creak in the stillness. The air was thick, almost suffocating, as if it were saturated with remnants of despair. Mom Jacob's voice trembled again. I feel something wrong." Her pulse quickened. "Stay close to me, Jacob." But when she turned, the shadows lurched forward, pulling them deeper into the unknown. Laura felt her breath hitch in her throat, a strangled gasp escaping as fear clawed at her insides. The remnants of Emily's voice echoed in her head, a warning, a plea rippling through her mind. "Find her, Laura. Save her." "Save who?" she muttered, mostly to herself. The weight of the unknown pressed heavily on her soul, and she gripped Jacob's hand tighter, the warmth of his little fingers reminding her of the life that pulsed within him. A sudden rustle in the underbrush snapped her from her thoughts. A flash of movement startled her into a defensive position, and Jacob let out a soft whimper. The air thickened, a palpable tension hanging heavy around them, suffocating. "Is someone there?" Laura called out, her voice breaking, filled with an instinctive urge to confront whatever fate awaited them. The rustling grew louder, enveloping them in an eerie cacophony. Then, silence. And finally, a figure stepped from the shadows, a man, shrouded in a long, tattered coat, face obscured beneath the brim of a wide hat. His presence felt like a void, sucking the very light from the air. Laura's instincts screamed to run. "Lost, are we?" His voice slithered through the darkness, smooth but laced with malice. "Who are you?" Laura demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. "Just a friend," he said, taking a step forward. "But you have something I want." "What do you want?" She backed up slowly, pulling Jacob closer. The man tilted his hat up slightly, revealing pale eyes that gleamed like daggers. "Oh, it's not your concern, yet." Jacob was shaking beside her, and Laura could feel his fear. "Leave us alone," she snapped, desperation caressing her every word. But the man only chuckled, a sound devoid of any joy. "Your little boy needs to be careful. Fear is a powerful thing. It can guide you or destroy you." Laura felt a chill creep down her spine, a shudder that unraveled the courage she had left. "You stay away from him." The man laughed again, and the sound echoed like a death knell, reverberating through the clearing. "Or perhaps it's you who should be concerned about your choices. After all, shadows don't forget." Suddenly, he lunged forward, and the shadows around them surged, the ground rippling as if reacting to his command. Laura instinctively shielded Jacob, but it was too late. The darkness bristled around them, and the man's hollow voice echoed, "Time to choose." Laura panic flooded her senses, the world around her spinning wildly. What did he want them to choose? "What is my choice?" she shouted, desperate and defiant, as the shadows lunged for them once more. But the response was chilling. The man's laughter faded, replaced by whispers that slithered through the air, wrapping tighter around them. Just as they were on the brink of being consumed, a blinding light shattered the shadows once more, illuminating the clearing in a flash. And within that brilliance, Laura saw her only chance. "Jacob, run!" But the choice had already been made, and she could hardly see what lay beyond the light. Would it be escape or entrapment? The truth was waiting just ahead, and they were running out of time. Light burst around them, blinding and intense, but it was here that the shadows recoiled, swirling like dark smoke, drawn to something unseen. Laura and Jacob stumbled forward, blinded but propelled by sheer adrenaline. Every instinct told her to flee, to escape this realm that thrived on dread and despair. As the light dimmed, they found themselves in a narrow path bordered by twisted trees. The air was filled with a heavy mist, wrapping around them like icy fingers. Somehow, they had left the clearing, but the feeling that something was still hunting them lingered, deeper and more unsettling than before. "Where are we?" Jacob's voice quivered, knowing the answer would not be comforting. "I don't know, but we need to keep moving." Her heart was pounding, each beat drumming the rhythm of fear. They pressed on, stepping carefully on the uneven ground, everything feeling alive and hostile, whispering secrets she couldn't grasp. Ahead, the trees seemed to close in, their branches weaving a terrifying tapestry of shadows that danced in the corners of her vision. The atmosphere crackled with tension, an electric buzz that made her skin crawl. Then, a distant sound broke the stillness, a soft, unsettling humming. It was faint, almost melodic, but wrong. Jacob furrowed his brow, eyes wide. "What is that, Mom?" "I don't know," she whispered back, gripping his hand tighter as they ventured toward the source. With each tug forward, the humming grew louder, more insistent, laced with an eerie sweetness. It was tempting, like calling sirens beckoning them closer. The urge to turn back churned with dread in her stomach, but what choice did she have? They were trapped in the heart of darkness, the path twisted, an ominous bend leading them to a clearing ensconced in thick fog. At its center lay an old, gnarled tree, its roots sprawling out like fingers grasping into the earth, twisting with strange symbols carved into the bark. The humming resonated directly from it, vibrating through the ground beneath their feet, and she felt a pull and need to get closer. "Jacob, stay with me." As they approached, she noticed distorted shapes emerging from the fog, shadow-like figures cloaked in indistinct forms. They seemed to drift closer, whispering unintelligible words that echoed in the silence. Their faces flickered with familiar glimmers, flashes of lost ones, but no, they didn't look right, not with their hollow eyes or wide, grinning mouths. Who are they?" Jacob whimpered, terrified. "Just keep your eyes on me," Laura said firmly, keeping her voice steady, though her heart sank as dread twisted tighter around her throat. One of the figures stepped forward, tilting its head in a grotesque mimicry of curiosity. Its features shifted, blending into those of a woman Laura recognized from her childhood, a ghostly visage of a beloved neighbor long deceased. "Help us," the figure whispered, its voice a tangle of sorrow and a strange, alluring melody. "No." Laura gasped, stepping back, pulling Jacob with her. "You're not real." But doubt seeped in. How did she know? What if this was a chance to uncover truths she buried, memories wrapped in fear? The air thickened, shadows swelled, and the figures whispered louder, their claws gesturing as if craving a connection. "Don't listen to them, Jacob," Laura yelled, covering his ears. But the shadows surged closer, the melodious calling growing from soft symphony to a cacophony of desperate cries. Suddenly, the ground trembled. The roots of the tree began to twist and rise, creating a barrier, pulling the figures back into the darkness as if the shadows sought to reclaim what they had lost. "Mom, what is happening?" "I don't know, but we have to go." She dragged Jacob away, adrenaline coursing through her veins as the figures shrieked and fell into the swirling fog. Yet just as they retreated, she caught a glimpse of something glinting in the dirt near the twisted tree, a small object, half buried, flickering with a faint glow. The clearing looked less inviting now, shadows pulsated, waiting. Laura hesitated, torn between instinct and the unnatural curiosity that gnawed at her resolve. "Do we take it?" She could feel its pull, a tug on her very spirit, but instinctively, she knew that step would seal her fate. But before she could decide, the ground bucked violently beneath her, the tree cracking, its roots thrumming with a life of their own, and she could hear the whisper now malevolent. Leave or lose all. In that moment, the exhilarating sense of urgency eclipsed the shadows again, and they ran, racing against the rising tide behind them, a terrifying rush into whatever awaited beyond the trees. What would they discover? What horrors lurked behind the veil of silence? The choice lingered, and time was slipping away. Laura's legs pumped furiously, adrenaline propelling her through the twisted roots and oppressive fog. Jacob clung to her hand, his small frame stumbling behind her, fear and confusion etched on his face. They could hear the shadows, dark whispers swirling around them, like a tangible thing, a living entity growing nearer. "Mom! Where are we going?" he gasped, breathless and terrified. "We'll find a way out, I promise," she urged, though doubt gnawed at her insides. Their frantic flight felt endless, as if the forest conspired to keep them trapped, but every pulse in her chest reminded her they were alive, on the brink of freedom or doom. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled again, the trees' roots slithering like serpents. A monstrous wail echoed through the air, a sound so chilling it could freeze the blood in one's veins. The forest seemed to writhe with anger, shadows darkening even further, thickening until they were tangible, wrapping around Laura's legs. "Run!" she shouted, pulling Jacob forward even as he fought against the darkness threatening to swallow them. They burst into another clearing, a hollow scar of desolation. The air felt charged, thick with echoes of despair. Laura stumbled to her knees, horrified by what lay there, before them. A circle of stones surrounded a pit, smoke curling upward. Those jagged rocks looked ancient, steeped in dark rituals, the remnants of chaos clung to the air. An altar, a grave, a prison. It felt like a gateway to something unfathomable. From within the depths, the grotesque figures emerged again, faces flickering in and out of existence, twisted yet familiar, beckoning with empty hands. "Help us, join us," they whispered, their voices a captivating melody that lured the weak-hearted to their doom. "No!" Laura screamed, shaking her head, as if she could physically block out the temptation. "Don't listen to them, Jacob." But Jacob had hesitated, eyes wide with fear and yearning. "Mom, what if they want to help us?" They were slipping into a trance, the darkness around them whispering promises of safety, of past lives, lost loves, and trapped souls begging to be freed, both vivid and alluring. Laura felt their pull, it was like a swift current against her every instinct. "Jacob, please." She grabbed his face, forcing him to look into her eyes. "This is a trick, I swear. We need to fight. This is not real." It took a moment for him to snap back to her, confusion swirling in his deep brown eyes. "What do we do then?" "We keep going toward the light." Her voice rang with a fierce determination. It was the only truth they had left, the belief that light meant life, and shadows meant death. With renewed vigor, Laura tugged Jacob away from the clearing and back into the oppressive canopy of trees. They ran. Footsteps collided with panic, hearts thundered against the weight of their despair. But as they tore through the dark, she could feel shadows clawing at her, voices taunting her from the depths of uncertain memories. "Mom!" Jacob cried, fear elevating his voice. "What is going to happen?" "We'll find Emily. We'll find a way home." Her words felt hollow, yet she clung to them like lifeboats in a storm. Just when the forest tightened its grip, threatening to crush their spirits, a warm glow broke through the trees ahead. It beckoned like a lighthouse in a tempest, and Laura felt strength rekindle within her. "Jacob, that way!" she yelled, landing feet first toward the brightness, praying to all that was sacred that it was salvation. As they neared the light, they slowed, the shadows growing fainter as they passed through the threshold. Laura's heart raced with hope as they emerged into a sunlit meadow, flowers blooming in vibrant colors, bees buzzing lazily in the air. But soon, a sharp realization hit her. This place felt strangely unnatural, too perfect, like a mirage raised by the forest to lure them back. "Mom!" Jacob's voice trembled again. "Keep your eyes forward," she answered sharply, scanning for any signs of danger. But then came a whisper, sweet and soothing, velvety against her skin. "Join us, stay forever." "No!" Laura shouted, anchoring herself. "We're not staying. We want to go home." But the meadow pulsed with dark energy, the flowers' colors shifting into something grotesque and shadowy as though revealing their true form. Laura, a small, familiar voice called out, and she turned, breath catching in her throat. "Mommy!" Emily stood there, peering out from behind a curtain of vibrating mist. Her little figure looked ethereal, bathed in light but twisted in a way that pulled on Laura's heart. but just as hope flared, a darkness flickered in Emily's eyes, the same ominous glimmer Laura had seen in the creatures from before. Laura realized, this wasn't her daughter, this was something that had stolen her likeness. Emily! She screamed in horror. Help us! The thing that looked like Emily whispered, coy yet sinister, hands reaching forward. You should stay forever. No! Laura yelled, charging forward, desperately. You're not my daughter. In a flash, she felt Jacob tugging at her side. Together, they stepped back, their hearts racing. Suddenly, the light exploded, pushing back the shadows as if the very essence of the forest had turned against itself. The figures, now twisted and fraying at the edges, howled in anguish, darkness retreating. Run! We have to run! Laura shouted, gripping Jacob's hand tightly as they sprinted, eyes locked ahead. Just then, they found a narrow path leading away from the chaos, the taste of freedom thick in the air. They burst forward, crossing what felt like an invisible line. Behind them, the wails faded, and the pull of darkness diminished. As they emerged from the wretched woods, the sun warmed their cheeks, pouring light over them like a bomb, illuminating the bruises fear had left behind. Mom, are we safe? Jacob panted beside her, voice trembling but resilient, his small face brightening with true hope. Yeah, we're safe now, Laura whispered, wrapping her arms around him, heart finally slowing as tears traced down her cheeks. Together, they turned back toward the forest, its haunted echoes now muffled whispers in the distance. They had survived, against all odds. But as they walked away, Laura felt a chill creeping up her spine, a lingering dread that whispered in her mind. The shadows weren't gone, they were watching, lurking just beyond sight, waiting for an opportunity. And she knew, deep down, this battle wasn't over. With a shuddering breath, they stepped into a new dawn, hearts a little lighter but senses on high alert. The wilderness would remember them, they had been marked by its haunting embrace. But for now, they were reunited, and that hope shone brighter than any darkness could consume. The moment of peace settled around them, and for the first time, Laura allowed herself to believe in a future beyond the shadows, but they would always look over their shoulders, because once you escape the dark woods, only time will tell if you've truly left it behind. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans realize the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.